Hello, I am Zachary Babachek, and today I would like to be talking a little bit about the Battle of Fallen Timbers. First, I would like to talk about where and when the Battle of Fallen Timbers took place. The Battle of Fallen Timbers would take place relatively near present-day Toledo, Ohio. This is near Lake Erie or Northwest Ohio. It would take place on August 20th, 1794, so quite some time ago. And since it was in this relative time span, it would have an effect and would relatively be about expanding further west. As we would expand further west, there would be different battles, and this was just one of the battles that would come into play, as I should say. Uh, at the end of the battle, there would be a treaty signed, and this treaty would be called the Treaty of Greenville. Some things that would take place before the Battle of Timbers were when the Treaty of Paris was first signed. This would allow for many different groups of Native Americans, which were actually allied with British troops, to actually stay up in the Northwest Territory. Some of these groups of Native Americans would include the Chippewa, Ottawa, Potawatomi, Shawnee, Delaware, Miami, and Wyandotte. Uh, all this tension from all these from British troops and them being allied with Native Americans would really want to make America think that they don't want them there. So this would uh, relatively lead up to wanting to clear out many of these tribes and um, would all end up leading to the Battle of Fallen Timbers. I would like to talk about General Anthony Wayne, who was a general in the Battle of Fallen Timbers. But before I get into what he did in the Battle of Fallen Timbers, I would like to talk about what he did before the Battle of Fallen Timbers. He was actually born on January 1st, 1745, and he was born in Chester County, Pennsylvania. He would be promoted to general when he would be fighting in the Revolutionary War, and he would be in charge of holding the line in Pennsylvania. And he was in charge of many different things during this time, but that was his main focus during the Revolutionary War and would lead him up into the Battle of Fallen Timbers. Now I would like to get into the battle itself and what General Wayne did during this battle. At the beginning of the battle, General Wayne would like to lead his men on a 5-mile march, and this would be across treacherous terrain, and it would be very hard to maneuver and get around. But once they ended this 5-mile march, they were rewarded with something, and this would be over 1,000 Native Americans awaiting their arrival. And they were not too nice to them, that was for sure. Some of these tribes that would be fighting against General Wayne would include the Shawnee, Miami, and Lenape, with all their generals being present in the battle. And they were ready for them and were just awaiting on their arrival. Once the Native Americans started their attack, they would end up catching Wayne's men off guard and end up making the militia and his front guard both retreat along with many others, and this would end up causing the Native Americans to pursue them. And as they would pursue them, they would end up getting in close quarter combat, which would actually be bad for them and turn the tables of this battle. And as they started to notice that they weren't doing too well in this close quarters, the Native Americans ended up retreating and going to hide in piles of timber which were knocked down by a tornado, hence the name the Battle of Fallen Timbers. As the battle would come to an end, Wayne's men would end up holding his position for several days, in which is known as Fort Miami, and would allow the battle to come to a close. As the battle ended, a treaty would be signed known as the Treaty of Greenville. This would allow for settlement for whites to be allowed in the Northwest Territories. This battle would also play an effect in a war that would happen years later, known as the War of 1812. With much settlement in the Northwest allowing expansion, this would really help America in the war and help them achieve victory in the War of 1812. Next, I would like to show you some pictures of the Treaty of Greenville, which, of course, played a role in the ending and was signed off by both the Native Americans and, of course, the Americans and General Wayne in the end of the war, which would, of course, have large effects in the future. The Battle of Fallen Timbers is actually a location and a monument which you can still go visit to this day. And I would highly encourage, because it is a cool relic of the past, and especially for Ohio, it's a pretty neat battle to see and actually be there and see the history of, something very important that happened in Ohio. And that was my presentation on the Battle of Fallen Timbers. I hope you learned a little more about some history of Ohio and this battle and what it really did for Ohio and the country of the United States of America.